Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're in. Welcome to the very first FEZANA talk in 2022. We are really thrilled to have all of you, and I think this is one of the best starts we've had. We are already over 100 people at the start of this session. And before I go into the actual talk for today, just a small plug. To the World Zoroastrian Congress that is coming up in New York. The extended deadline for early bird registration is a week from now. So if you haven't registered, please do so. We assure and promise you that you'll have the time of your lives. So we hope to see all of you and many more at the World Congress in July. Now, coming to today's talk, the FEZANA Talks was an initiative that came about, at the start of the pandemic as a result of the fact that we could not all meet in person. And over the last 25 talks, we've tried to curate an experience where we bring experts, from all over the world to talk on a variety of subjects that in some way are all related to Zoroastrianism, the faith that we all practice and believe in. And so today's talk is going to be given by Dr. Sarah Stewart, but I would first introduce the moderator. Shernaz Engineer is a fellow of the Institute of Recruitment Consultants and owns Verity Appointments, which places commercial and office staff in the city of and city education, which places supply teachers in school. Shernaz is also the chair of the Zoroastrian Chamber of the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce, the UK chapter, which encourages entrepreneurship within the Zoroastrian community. Shernaz is also the trustee for Learning for Life, a charity which enables South Asia's most marginalized children to gain access to education, health, and employment. Before I pass it on to Shernaz, a few ground rules. After the talk, there will be a Q&A. All questions for the Q&A should come through the chat. You can directly put them in the chat box, or you can put them, you can message them to Shernaz, and Shernaz will filter them and, post them, those questions to Dr. Stewart. And then once we finish with the formal part of the talk, there will be an open chat session if people want to hang on and, talk further. So with that, I pass it on to Shernaz.
Mr. Bustani has raised his hand. I don't know what that means.
No, I think we'll deal with all of that later on.
Okay,
for now.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, a warm welcome to everyone from a very cold and cloudy London. Thank you for attending this webinar, which I'm sure will be very informative and interesting. So without much ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Sarah Stewart. Dr. Sarah Stewart holds the SOAS Shapurji Palanji Lectureship in Zoroastrianism and is co-chair of the SSB Institute of Zoroastrian Studies. Her principal area of research is the Zoroastrian living tradition. Her publications include, in collaboration of Mandana Moavenat, Voices of Zoroastrian Iran, Volumes 1 and 2, which based on fieldwork accompanied by an archive of recorded interviews. Sarah was the lead curator of the exhibition of the Everlasting Flame at the Brunel Gallery and then in the National Museum of Delhi. She has recently launched a short introductory online course on Zoroastrianism. Her most recent project is Gen Z, or as the Americans call it, Gen Z, and Beyond Digital Survey. This is the first of its kind and seeks to capture the demographics, religious practices, and views of Zoroastrians in the world today. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Shernaz, and a warm welcome to everyone. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces in the audience. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you, which will take me a couple of minutes. Here we go. And right. So the subject, can everyone see my screen? Yeah, good. The subject of my short talk touches on one of the major global issues of today, the environment. And it was prompted by the recent 26th UN Climate Change Conference that took place in Glasgow in November last year. And the conference brought together heads of state, academics, scientists, and activists from all over the world to discuss ways in which the degradation of the planet through climate change might be reduced and eventually reversed. But the time-honored role of religious communities as gatekeepers of the natural world was largely absent. And I'm talking here about the ongoing cultural influence of religious beliefs on human behavior, and also the doctrinal roots of widespread habits and customs. Now, the purpose of my talk is to introduce you to a major digital survey that we're conducting at SOAS on the Zoroastrian community worldwide, and the way in which it connects with a whole range of topics, including the one that I'm talking about today. So what is the natural world, and how do people adapt to it, manage it, and why has the cultural influence of religious beliefs and practices been so important historically? So just briefly, we can think of the natural world perhaps as divided into two categories of diversity. Firstly, the varied systems that make up our world in terms of different species, genetics, and ecosystems in their natural state, so forests, rivers, desert, wetlands, and so on. And second is the diversity that results from man's intervention in those systems, which is normally associated with farming practices and local knowledge. And the thinking is that the conservation of cultural diversity in the form of values, religious beliefs and practices, languages, and so on, is closely linked to the conservation of biological diversity in natural and agricultural systems. And it's thought that those diverse relationships and their maintenance are essential to the well-being and sustainability of societies and the planet. So with that in mind, we're going to explore the Zoroastrian view of the relationship between man and the natural world. First, we'll look briefly at the doctrines and teachings according to some of the religious texts, looking in particular at the doctrine of the Amesha Spentas and the story of creation, Wunderhischen. Elements of this story were carried through to Persian literature, namely in the epic Shahnameh. I'll then go on to talk about attitudes towards the natural world, specifically the environment, with reference to the work of the late Mary Boyce in Iran, and my own recent work that Shernaz referred to among the Zoroastrian population of Yazd and the villages. But what research has lacked to date is information from Zoroastrians in all the places where they live in the world today. And we're beginning to catch a glimpse of this through the current Gen Z and Beyond survey, which seeks to capture the views of Iranian, Parsi, and Irani Zoroastrians on a wide variety of subjects. So including domestic and family life, professional aspirations, philanthropy, entrepreneurship, immigration, community engagement, and other issues of importance and relevance to Zoroastrians wherever they may be. So I'll end this talk with some of the data that has emerged so far regarding concerns about this one issue, the environment. Now, we have very little knowledge of the ancient world in which the Zoroastrian religion is rooted. Scholars have focused on the Proto-Indo-Iranian culture associated with the Bronze Age and Dravono culture of the 3rd millennium BCE, before the Christian era, and located on the Eurasian steppe. Cultural markers, and this is relevant to our theme, include a tribal-based economy that was divided into 3 groups: priests, warriors, and herdsmen. Their livelihood depended on the herding of cattle, sheep, and goats, with probably the most important domestic animal being the dog. At some point, the horse was domesticated and harnessed to a light chariot with spoked wheels, which was used in chariot races and for warfare. So here we have this rather beautiful gold model chariot. This, of course, belongs to the Achaemenid period, so much later than the ancient world that we're talking about. But you can see what I mean by the spoked wheels and the charioteer and the warrior standing in the back. Following migrations to Central Asia and south to the Iranian plateau, nomadic pastoralists began to settle and develop a mixed economy that involved agriculture as well as animal husbandry. So I mention this background very briefly so that we can have an idea of the physical and cultural context into which it is thought Zarathustra was born. We don't know to what extent this context shaped the doctrines and teachings of Zoroastrianism, but the disruption of the simple pastoral way of life and the destruction brought about by warring tribes has led some scholars to link this scenario to perhaps the most important element of the faith, which is the profound dichotomy between good and evil. And this dualism, laid out in the Avesta and developed in the later Pahlavi books of the 9th century Christian era, determined a pattern for the whole of creation. And the Zoroastrian myth of creation, and I emphasize the word myth, creation, is described in the Pahlavi text of the Bundahishan. And it describes how Ahura Mazda created the world in 2 stages. First, he created everything in a spiritual or immaterial state, Menog. And to aid him in the act of creation, he brought into being 6 divine immortals, Amesha Spentas, who together with Ahura Mazda formed a divine heptad. Ahura Mazda then gave the spiritual world gaetic or material, tangible existence, as shown here in this chart. Now, don't worry about reading everything, but I just want you to draw your attention to this, because I'm talking about the 7 creations. And here you have the 7 Amesha Spentas, with which I'm sure you're all very familiar. And this is, of course, the gaetic material state, but in its time of perfection. It had not yet been attacked. So the gaetic state, the material state, was susceptible to attack. And this is what the evil spirit Angramaini did. He broke through the stone sky, leaving a hole in it. He turned water salty. He polluted fire and caused it to smoke. He withered the plant, the first man, and the uniquely created bull. Picture of a cow here, actually. And he caused females to menstruate. He infested the earth with foul, creeping creatures. Basically, he destroyed and polluted everything in the good creation. The Amesha Spentas reacted by coming to the rescue and creating life from death, ushering in the period of mixture during which the great cosmic struggle between good and evil will take place, with mankind playing the leading role through having freedom to choose between the two. And this is the time of mixture that we're currently living in. At the end of time, there will be a final battle in which the forces of evil will be defeated once and for all. The bodies of the dead will be resurrected and united with their souls. The world will be returned to its original state of perfection. So in this chart, drawn by a former student of Zoroastrianism at SOAS, we can see how each of the creations connected to the guardian spirit, the Amesha Spenta. But why I think this is so nice is that we can see how each is linked to not only priestly ritual, but also to daily devotional life. So in a sense, it provides a visual key to the centrality of this doctrine, which in my view lies at the heart of Zoroastrianism. So I'll just sort of guide you through a couple of these. So here we have the hub, the Amesha Spentas and the Pahlavi Atmasvand. And then we go out here to the personification of truth. So Advahisht, meaning truth and order. The creation is fire, here in its perfect state. Its ritual representation in the yasna is the ritual fire. And then in everyday life, people are reminded of this doctrine, this teaching, through keeping fire unpolluted and being just and righteous in thoughts, words, and deeds. So in a sense, this doctrine knits together all aspects of the faith. And we could just look here at Amurdad, the Amesha Spenta, the guardian spirit of the whole of the natural world in terms of plants, if you like, representing long life, immortality, creation is the plant. In the ritual of the yasna, the hauma, The symbolic bundle of twigs is the representation held by the twigs held by the priest. And in everyday life, it's incumbent upon people to nurture plants and trees. So perhaps we might take stock here and consider the story so far. What does it say about the relationship between Zoroastrians and the natural world? So first, we have the idea that in the next world, in the afterlife, it's marked by physical and emotional sensibilities. So I'm not going to quote from texts here, but it's written that we have a very clear picture of what is thought to be heaven or paradise, and then the opposite, hell, if you like. But these are described respectively in terms of taste and smell and feelings of pain and happiness. So it's a very physical idea. And second, we should note that in Zoroastrianism, the material world is just as valuable as the spiritual world, and therefore worthy of worship. Zoroastrians worship Ahura Mazda through his creations, represented by the Amesha Spentas, which emanate from and are part of him. So the important thing is that there's no sense that the spiritual world is somehow superior to the material world, as it often is in other religions. So, for example, Zoroastrians aren't encouraged to fast or to be celibate or to refrain from making money and engaging in business or enjoyment of all that life on earth has to offer. Life should be a celebration, in other words. Because the creations derive ultimately from Ahura Mazda, Zoroastrian texts stress the importance of keeping them pure and unpolluted through observance of purity laws. And so here we go back to ancient texts and ancient ideas, where we have severe punishments described that were in store for those who failed to nurture and preserve the good creations. And the book of the Vendidad in Young Avestan language, Law Against the Demons, provides detailed information on the laws of purity and the punishments that will follow when people break them. And in fact, there are 3 chapters devoted to the virtues of the dog and punishments for those who maltreat or kill dogs or frighten puppies. A Pahlavi text, the Ardavira Namag, set in the early Sasanian period during the reign of its founder Ardashir I, tells the story of the righteous Viras, a gentleman who undertakes a journey to the other world to bring back first-hand knowledge of the rewards and punishments in store for the souls of people whose good and bad deeds have been judged at the Chinvat Bridge. He's first shown the delights enjoyed by those in paradise, whose good deeds have outweighed the bad ones while on earth. He's then shown the plight of those whose bad deeds prevailed and who suffered dreadful punishments meted out by the same noxious creatures that people were required to fight and destroy during their lifetime. So these are the creepy crawlies and nasty things that Ahriman brought forth to destroy and pollute the perfect creation of Ahura Mazda. The Ardavira Namag was retold in Persian and Gujarati and became popular as a result of the colourful, very vivid illustrations that accompanied these texts. So in this particular text, it includes punishments for the soul of the person who killed dogs and the person who did not protect water and fire from corpses. And this particular illustration shows the soul of a woman who combed her hair over the fire. So, as I'm sure you are aware, hair is considered dead matter and therefore is a pollutant. And even today, some Zoroastrians will ensure that hair is cut outside the house. Hair and nail parings are carefully disposed of. So this is just another verse, another text in Persian, also with Avestan. And this describes a garden in paradise in which there are musicians and dancers. So here we have the rewards. And Ardavira is told that people in paradise earn their rewards while on earth by destroying evil creatures. And then there's a whole sort of litany of the various creatures that are considered to be harmful to mankind. Of course, there's no scientific basis for that, but we're talking about an archaic, ancient view of the world and its creations. So Themes, myths and legends, customs and practices from pre-Islamic Iran entered into Persian literature, most notably the epic Shahnameh compiled by Abu Qasim Firdausi. And these stories appear in illustrated manuscripts of the Shahnameh. And they're also the subject of Persian miniature paintings. So going back to our creation story, this painting shows the first man, a Geomars, dressed in leopard skin, holding court in the mountains. You can see the animals around him. And it's said in the Shahnameh, the cattle and the diverse beasts of prey grew tame before him. And then there's a reference in the Vesta to Ahura Mazda revealing the law to Geomaritan. And then again in the Dainkhard, Geomard is the first human being to follow the teachings of Ahura Mazda and will be the first to be resurrected at the end of time. And this is another, sorry, I've jumped ahead here, another well-known story, which is the fire ordeal of Siawash. And it shows him undergoing the ordeal by fire to prove his innocence, following the accusation of his stepmother Sudabeh of violating her. And he urges his horse into the flames and re-emerges, as it says in the Shahnameh, with rosy cheeks and smiles upon his lips. So here we have the notion of fire, creation of the Amesha Spentas Asha Vahishta, representing truth, being used as the arbitrator in ultimate test of veracity. So now I want to move on and look at the relationship between Zoroastrians and the natural world in the modern period, beginning with Zoroastrian communities in rural Iran, specifically in the desert city of Yazd and its surrounding villages, where the lack of water has made the lives of the farming community increasingly difficult. And the point I want to make here is that despite this considerable adversity, villagers have continued to farm and to nurture the land in ways that go beyond the requirements of simply planting crops and raising animals. During the period that Mary Boyce was there in the mid-1960s, although some villages had been reclaimed by the desert, others still maintained farmland, orchards and gardens. And the diversity of trees and plants that were grown were really quite remarkable. In her notebooks, Boyce records a rotational system of crops that included lucerne, wheat, barley and watermelon. The edges of the fields, she writes, were sown with pistachio and cotton. Carrots and turnips were grown as cattle fodder. A variety of trees grew in the village, including mulberries, willows, poplars, elm, ash, and fruit trees. Apples, pears, plums, mulberry, and pomegranates were grown in the courtyards of all houses and the orchards, and abundance of mint in the gardens. So this is this village of Jafarabad, shown here engulfed by sand. This is in fact a recent photo, but it was already reclaimed by the desert in Boyce's time. But of course she was based in Sharifabad when this Jamshidi school was flourishing, and a lot of children were there. Again, now it's abandoned, and this is an abandoned house in the village of Zainabad. And these pictures I took when I was there, and you can see these little bright patches of green where the open canal irrigates some of the fields. This is very typical. Those of you who've been will recognize the mud brick villages, this very stark landscape behind, and then the water tank in the foreground with the bad gear in the back, the wind towers. So this loss of farmland caused by the lack of water is undoubtedly a major factor causing gradual shift from rural to urban living, emigration abroad, and the shrinking of the Zoroastrian population. And as Shernaz says, I've recently published the results of the research project, and this topic about desertification and environment invariably comes up in interviews with villagers. But despite their depleted numbers, knowledge of the land and how to produce the range of crops, orchards, market produce, flowers, and so on in this arid region is still astonishing. And it may be perhaps a romantic notion, but I can't help associate this deep understanding of all things created by Amudad plants and Bahman cattle with the religious obligation to nourish the creatures and the environment. So moving on, I don't have comparable data for Zoroastrian farmers in India, in rural Gujarat. In cities such as Mumbai, there is good work being done with respect to the environment. And I expect you're familiar with the work, the projects run by Rashna Pariwala there in Mumbai on urban afforestation, solar electrification, and rainwater harvesting at the Dungawadi and other Parsi institutions. And so I've just taken this from a YouTube clip of her work on the Dungawadi, Towers of Silence, of course, which you're all familiar with. I hadn't realized that they were built in 1672. And 54 acres of central Mumbai, of course, surrounds them. And here she is, Dr. Pariwala. She says, I truly believe that nature has an amazing ability to bounce back if we only gave it that one opportunity. I think communities need to come together to start greening their concrete jungles, to start reviving forests. Biodiversity is required for our survival. And so this is what she's done to date, all these over 7,000 native tree saplings, 52 unique plant species, and offsetting the carbon dioxide. So this I thought I would just pop into my talk. This was an article from the New York Times a couple of years ago, actually, showing first the old projection for the city of Mumbai, and the little patches here show land underwater at high tide, as it says, and the buildings, little black dots. And this is a projection, a new projection for 2050, in which most of the historic downtown area of South Mumbai is effectively wiped out. And one might ask what will happen to the many Atash Baharams and Agyaris located there, not to mention the historic legacy of Parsi buildings. So I have no idea how accurate this is, but certainly it's quite an alarming thought. So now we may have reasonably up-to-date information about concerns for the environment amongst Iranian Zardoshtis and some idea of the work going on in India. We don't have a sense of how Zoroastrians around the world are thinking about the environment as one of the major global issues of today. Do people care? Or is it just those who are directly involved in some kind of job or profession that links them to the environment? And this is just but one theme or topic included in the Gen Z and beyond survey. And I should mention here, I hope all of you have done it, but if you haven't, there are around 130 questions, but don't be put off, because when you're in the survey, you'll see that depending on who you are, what kinds of questions will automatically be skipped. So you'll be looking at around 15 to 20 minutes of your time and around 80 questions. And so one of the questions in our questionnaire asks people the most significant global issue out of this list. So which of the following do you consider the most significant global issue today? Environment and sustainability, spread of misinformation via social media, social justice and human rights, health, migration, and then I'm not interested in global issues. So interestingly, so far in the data we've collected, the environment and sustainability comes first, with spread of misinformation via social media close second. And so it goes on down the list. But the thing is that when we get our data, we can actually cross-reference, we can look at it in lots of different ways. So just to give you an example here, with this same question, we might decide to look at the difference between men and women in answering the question. And we'll see that there is some difference here. 32% of male respondents chose spread of misinformation as the most significant issue, followed by 30% choosing environment, and so on. And then if we look at it by age, again, the same question, you can see it's broken down into these categories. So there's a nice spike here, 26 to 35-year-olds choosing this as the most important issue. This is the age group, sorry, 41%. And then finally, if we look at the same question by country, and so in the UK, 37% of UK respondents chose environment as the most important issue, going on down to Pakistan. And so I hope that this example of this little snippet of data will demonstrate the comprehensive data that will be accessible at the end of the Gen Z and beyond project. So all the data will be stored in perpetuity somewhere like the UK National Data Archive. And anyone who can show that they have a genuine interest in the material will have access to it. That's the raw data. We will produce a report showing the kind of breakdown of all the various things that we've asked people in similar charts to the one I've just shown you. So it should really be viewed as an encyclopedic source of information for the curious. It will have everything there if you're interested in any aspect of Zoroastrian life today. You should be able to find some data. And you'll be able to see how others within the community are responding to all the various questions aimed at determining what it means to be Zoroastrian, whether Irani, Iranian, or Parsi in the world today. So thank you. I will end here.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. It's been very enlightening. And we've got some questions. One that has come up on the chat is, giving the interim survey results here surely influences future responses from those who are made aware of the results. I think what they're saying is you've shown us some, the survey that's up to the present time, and SE feels that this might influence the people who are going to fill out the surveys now.
Okay, well, that's an interesting point. I mean, we're still in early stages of getting the data. We're still, it's still, the responses, we haven't got a huge number of responses. Personally, I can't see why it should influence people. Everyone has their own voice, everyone has their own thoughts. And the point is, it's completely anonymous. So why should it matter what you write or what you put when we can't connect the questionnaires that come in all electronically into a platform? We can't connect them to the people who filled out the questionnaire. So I think that's really the key to this, in answer to this question. Why should it matter when you can't be identified? You should just say what you feel, what you think. So I don't personally see that as an issue, but it's certainly an interesting question.
As we are talking about the Gen Z, can I ask you, Dr. Stewart, there is so much misinformation about the Gen Z survey on social media, including privacy and ethics. Please tell us how this survey will be conducted.
Okay, so privacy and ethics. Okay, well, social media. I mean, yes, there has been some misinformation. I should say perhaps views based on misinformation, but not a great deal on social media. We're posting 3 times a week about Gen Z, in our various social media channels, and we have mostly a good response. I'd like it to get disseminated further. field, and more generally, if people can share on their WhatsApp and so on. But misinformation certainly has come out most recently in an article published in Parsi Voice, and then as a letter to the editor in Jami Jamshid a couple of Sundays ago. And that had a lot of misinformed ideas in it. I mean, ideas based on misinformation about privacy, about ethics, about various other things. And we published our response to that last Sunday, again in Jami Jamshid. And so with respect to privacy, I think I've explained the way that our survey is conducted is that once you get access to the survey, it's completely out of our hands, if you like. It's all done electronically. You get a thank you electronically from the server, and the questionnaire that you filled comes in without any personal information attached to it, and so it's completely anonymous, and therefore the privacy is completely respected in that respect. As far as ethics are concerned, well, no, this is as well as something that I hope will be of great use to the Zoroastrian community worldwide, Parsi, Iranian. It's also a research project for us here at SOAS. We don't have an agenda. It's just a normal research project, and it has to go through a very rigorous ethics committee. And this it did in October 2019. It was vetted by our ethics panel here at SOAS. All research projects that are funded internally or externally have to go through this process. So in terms of ethics, it's absolutely been cleared. So there's no there should be no misunderstanding there. And again, this article based its comments on misunderstanding or misinformation. So yeah, I think that should answer your question. I hope it does. But I think you're muted, Shernaz.
Khurshid Itchaporia says, I wonder why you named it Gen Z survey. Oh my gosh, it's gone up. Gen Z is those born after 1996, but seems like the surveys are open to all above the age of 18.
Yes, it's certainly open to all. It's certainly open to everyone above the age of 18. And so I think you just have to not take this too literally. I mean, I think of Gen Z as the kind of future, the future generations, but certainly this is open to everyone. We really want everyone to answer it, because one of the most interesting aspects, certainly for us, is that, you know, you get different views coming through the generations. And so not only where people are living, whether they've migrated or not, all sorts of different types of information, but in particularly generational differences. So yes, it's very much open to everybody.
Asmita Cole asks, can non-Zoroastrians participate in the survey?
No.
No. So that's,
I mean, unless they're married to a Zoroastrian. So yes, we have spouses of Zoroastrian.
There is another question about, you know, someone doing the survey twice.
Impossible. They can't do that. Now, this is one of the why we have at the moment perhaps slightly clunky sign-up system. It's a two-step system. So first you apply, you click on the link, and you ask to be sent the survey, and then you wait to be sent that survey, and then you do it. And the reason for this is that we want to eliminate any possibility of people being able to do it more than once. You get a special code, and if that code comes up again, you're immediately eliminated from the survey. If you decided to, so everything possible we've done to prevent that. happen.
Right. Idildara is asking, how has the questionnaire response been so far? And what can we do as a group to improve?
Okay, well, this is a very welcome question. To be absolutely honest with you, the response has been quite disappointing. There's been some criticism, like I've just outlined, but actually, I think the main thing is that people are simply too busy. They don't know why it would be relevant to them, what's in it for them. They're not interested, perhaps, in fellow Zoroastrians around the world. I'm really not sure what the reason is. All I know is that we've had some fantastic support. We've got a network of ambassadors at the moment in North America and in India, and they in turn have recruited volunteers. So we have a fantastic team. I can see many of you here now working really hard to get the word out. But still, we need more. We really, really do need everybody to tell your friends, get it out on via social media, come up with suggestions as to how, how to get people to think differently and think, yes, this will be an encyclopedic resource. Yes, it'll be stuck in this period in time, 2022 or 2023, whenever the thing is actually finished. It's due to end the end of this year, but you will have a vast resource to tap into to see there are issues. I don't believe anybody isn't concerned about something or other going on in the community, whether it's just possibly the fact that numbers are dwindling, that people are leaving India, leaving Iran, whatever it might be, and to sort of tackle those things, to look and see how other people are viewing them and responding to them, there it will be. So, I think that that's the way you can help. By explaining.
Shireen Irani is saying, I've done the initial step, but I've never received the actual survey.
Okay.
What does she have to do to get it?
Okay, well, that has happened. It's not happening very much now because we've warned people sometimes it goes into spam. That's the only reason I can think that would happen. At the moment, we have a system whereby you should get your survey within 24 hours. The weekend, it might be 48 hours, but otherwise you'll get it within the day. You should get it by the next day. If it goes into spam and you don't look in spam, you may not have been able to find it. But for anyone interested, and I had this idea literally just before I began this talk, we have a lovely team. We have Nazneen engineer and Joe Turtle works here on the data side of things. We could perhaps run sessions if anyone's interested to actually do the survey, as it were, with us. We still won't be able to see what you send in, but yes, we might know that who you are wanting to do the survey, and we can actually make sure that nothing goes wrong and that you're happy with it as you do it, and then when you press the submit button, from that moment on, we won't know who belongs to who or anything like that. So
should Shireen actually, do the first step again if she hasn't received it, or if she does it, does that mean that she'll be blocked because she's already put in a request?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to email. There's an email address on the Gen Z website, and that we'll get back to her and sort it out
right.
Monday.
Okay. Now, how does this survey, Essie's asking, how does this survey exercise help the community? How does this survey exercise help the community? Can you spell this out, please?
Okay, well, as I've just said, I would assume that there are issues in the community that people are concerned about or would like to know more about, or who would like to know how other people are identifying as being Zoroastrian. Is it ethnicity? Is it religion? Is it both? What do they think about certain things in other parts of the world or in other parts of their own community? I mean, we're going to be breaking it down into very fine categories across North America, for instance, and in India as well. It's really something that I think people should do, because it will be a vast resource, and a lot of misunderstandings could and should be cleared up through having that resource, where you find, well, actually, no, they're not all thinking like that in Hong Kong or Singapore or wherever, or across the generations, or between males and females. So, this talk that I did today is just a tiny example on the environment, but there's a whole range of issues on education, on professional life, all sorts of things. And don't forget, we've still got co-religionists in Iran. I don't know how many of you are interested or have been to Iran, or that is a very strong but tiny community, and there are many Iranis in North America as well. So it's just perhaps even just connecting people, is something that you might feel comes out of this, something you want to engage in.
Khurshid Ichaporia says, tiny suggestion is to make the age range in a bold link, because basically Gen Z means something else. So okay. I don't know what you think of that, Sarah.
I want to do anything that will make it more, more easily understood. And so definitely, sorry, who said that?
It was Khurshid Ichaporia.
Okay, so Khurshid, if you could write to us, we will talk about how to best to implement that. I should also say that, I defer to you, Shernaz, but the survey is translated into Gujarati and into Farsi.
Wonderful.
So very soon you will be able to read it in both. Well, you should be able to now. The Farsi one hasn't come through. It's done, but it's just being checked. So it can be done in 3 languages. And then at the moment, our project manager, Nazneen Engineer, who's here, I can see, she's in Surat, and she's spending 2 months in India. And the reason for that kind of field trip, if you like, boots on the ground, is to go round to the bags, to places where elderly or people might have problems with the technology, with their computers. Most people have a smartphone. You can do it on your smartphone. But Nazneen, with her team in India, is there to help people.
So quickly going through, we seem to have a lot of questions on the survey. Very quickly, Katie and Fred Mirza is asking, what about those who may not have a computer? Is this available in a paper form for mailing?
No, if you
There's
don't
still
have...
quite a few older people who do not use computers.
But what we found is that there are very few who don't have a smartphone, or someone in the family with a smartphone, and they can do it. They can do it on that. Or, the reason, if we can get more volunteers, and actually we're offering paid help in India as well to assist Nazneen, we can take tablets to people to do it, on a tablet. But of course, we're very aware and wary of COVID in India, so we're being very careful not to expect people to come out and meet, and But yes, there are very few people who don't have a smartphone if they don't have a computer or access to a phone through a family member, I would suggest.
There's one, is there a future project to build on this ancestry database? I don't know.
Sorry, how do you mean ancestry database?
Well, it's Manik Bhujwala. Is there a future to build on ancestry database? I'm not sure what he's...
Oh, to build an ancestry database.
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes, not as far as I'm aware, no. I mean, certainly not ours. One thing I should mention is that in India, there's been a lot of confusion between this project, the Gen Z survey,
Yes.
and Dr. Shernaz Karma's Geoparsi project. And so my understanding is that the Geoparsi project, her project, is a census. It's not a survey. And there's a very distinct difference between the two. A census is actually asking people for details, addresses, names, I don't know what else, age. And this is something that I think has been commissioned or asked for by the government. And it's a completely separate, completely different project. Hers is a census, ours is a survey, which invites people to give all sorts of views and data on different aspects of life as a Zoroastrian, and it's anonymous.
So getting back to the environment, which we started with, it says, so Kushru Bagli says, with environment and sustainability in mind, Parsis in India and Zoroastrians worldwide need to find a more environment-friendly, sustainable option to burning sandalwood and lighting oil divas. Any suggestions on that?
Goodness me. Well, no, I don't, because I'm not an expert in that. All I would say is that, of course, there already has been, I mean, there already are some electric lights, if you like, divas, not the actual oil, burning the oil. And I know that, well, traditionally, clean, dry sandalwood is supposed to practically have no smoke at all. And I've seen it crackling and burning away with practically no smoke. I don't know about you, but as an actual alternative, I would hesitate to even suggest one. I'd probably have people jumping down my throat.
There's another suggestion about the Congress in New York, and is asking what they're going to do about the plastic waste. So it says, what measures will the organizers of the upcoming World Congress take to mitigate single-use plastics and paper pollution? Will we walk the talk? I know, Sarah, that's not your domain.
No.
I think
you're not running the Congress, but perhaps it's FEZANA who will take that issue on board, in fact.
I think we can ask the gentleman to just email us at contact@wzc2022.nyc, and we can answer that question separately. This is not part of the talk just now.
Well, it's here. Okay.
Could I just quickly mention,
yes,
sorry to
please.
interrupt you, Shernaz, I've just seen a question about a survey by the late Professor Hinnels in the 1980s, and wondering if it's available. It's definitely available. It's still, you can still buy it, and it's certainly here on in
yes.
the UK. And that was, the interesting thing about that was, of course, it was, I mean, it's a very comprehensive survey, but it relied on snail mail, and everyone, you know, they had to have the survey posted to them, and they had to send it back by post. So this, I think, is the very first time we've had a global digital survey where everything can be done electronically. And that's why there's no excuse for people not to do it, because they can just do it. You can pause it as well. You can start it and pause it and go back to it.
Which is great.
Which is, you know, so really can do it very easily.
So Jaru and Karishma are asking, how does this project build upon or improve upon the TISS project completed in 2017? If this could be explained to people, maybe people will be moved. Right.
So that project, I've got the books here actually, was, yes, the Tata Institute survey, and that took many, many years to complete. It's a very comprehensive survey of Parsi, the interview, based on interviews. the elderly, and there are 5 volumes, youth, various issues, but it wasn't conducted by Parsis, and it is very different from what we're doing. It wasn't an electronic survey where you basically zip through questions and collecting quantitative data. I think, again, if that whoever it is would like to email me, I've got all the books, and I went to the Tata Institute actually the last time I was in India, just before this survey started to take shape, and before the fundraising began and everything. And there was a thought that we might join forces with the Tata Institute for this survey, but then it was decided that there wasn't really much point. They'd done theirs. The big difference actually is that theirs was just confined to India, and their idea was to put their information in for India, and we'd do the rest of the world. But we felt very strongly that we need to have the whole thing in the same, as it were, in the same vein, asking the same questions. So yeah, theirs was just India-wide.
This is quite a valid question. Mehran Safari says, are you sure your survey is statistically valid? If you cannot get to the entire community and your sample may not be representative.
Well, now I'm not the technological person on this, but yes, I understand when you take a sample, most surveys are samples, but that it's broken down in a way that is representative, and there's a cutoff point where if you have too few answers for a particular question, then it's not valid. It's not going to be a valid result. So just recently, I was reading about a new survey that's just been done on European Jews, and they had 16,000 responses, and I thought, that's pretty good. But there are, I understand, 1.4 million Jews in Europe. So 16,000 is actually a fraction of that, and that's a completely valid academic scientific sample that's been analysed and a report's being written up, which I'm going to read. So yes, you can sample, and we have a company actually who's advising us on the data analysis, and providing you have above a certain level of respondents, then it's fine.
Jaru and Karishma again are asking, how are we reaching the Zoroastrians in Iran? If people understood that, this may also help understand the significance of this project.
Yes, of course. So we very much, the way we're running it is that with the first 2 months, we focused on North America. We're now keeping North America rolling and hoping that more people will respond, because we haven't had anything like the response we'd hoped for. But we're now actually focused on India, and Nazanin Engineer is in India until the end of March. And then we're going to turn our attention to Iran. We have contacts in Iran. We'll be doing the same thing. The survey will be in Persian, in Farsi. And so we hope to get a good response from Iran. We have a lot of contacts there.
Right, Mehran is saying, thanks for a comprehensive talk, Dr. Sarah. Addressing the content of today's talk, what initiatives can local communities in large cities such as Karachi and Singapore can take towards environmental conversation from a Zoroastrian community lens? What kind of support can we receive from Zoroastrian Trust to promote such initiatives? I'm not sure whether you can actually reply for the Zoroastrian Trust, Sarah, but
well, I think that if it's something people are concerned about, they should be raising it with their community leaders. And that's one of the reasons why I think this survey is important, because you've got your leaders of the community, you've got all the anjumans and the institutions and so on. And it's up to the membership to say what is, what's important to them, what they want to help fund, what they want funded, what they want to do. So I know that for ZTFE here in London, there are all sorts of initiatives. You won't know only too well, Shernaz. Whether it's a hospital, it might not. It's quite often a hospital somewhere in India, in Mumbai, that money's being collected for, all sorts of initiatives. But that's, people have to drive these things. So I think environment is very crucial. You've got, a religion that, however way you look at it, you've got a very strong idea of the environment. And so, yeah, you just have to make your voice heard.
Shiraz Setna, who I assume hasn't yet taken the survey, says, does this survey have questions about mental health?
Oh, it has questions about health. I think there is a question about mental health in that category, but without it in front of me, I can't say. To be perfectly honest, I can't remember. There are lots of categories, and health does come into it, but I'm not sure exactly how it's framed. And if you'd like to email me, I can respond. But no.
Shiraz, if you can put your email there, Sarah, so that Shiraz Setna can actually email you.
Okay.
The other thing is they're asking how they can see the promotional film. I mean, is it on the Gen Z website?
We can show it here now if you want.
That would be really nice if you could.
Yeah, that would be good, Arzan.
Okay, so let's do that, and then we'll continue the Q&A after that. I have it queued up. Let me just play it.
Thousands of Zoroastrians, like you and I, continue to practice the beautiful ancient religion of Zoroastrianism to this very day, despite the challenges our ancestors have faced. The question then arises, how do we as Zoroastrians begin to have a better understanding of our faith and culture, and of our fellow Zoroastrians from around the world? How do we preserve our precious and unique identity in our traditional homelands while creating and strengthening it in the diaspora? The Gen Z and Beyond survey will provide some much needed answers to these questions.
Hello, my name is Sarah Stewart, and I'm the Sharpaji Palanji Senior Lecturer in Zoroastrianism and co-chair of the Institute with Professor Almut Hinze. I'm delighted that this project has come to SOAS and would like to thank all those who've supported it despite the difficult times we're living through currently. The digital survey that we're going to launch on the 16th of August 2021 is the first of its kind insofar as it's global, completely anonymous, and entirely online. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Nazneen Engineer, who's going to be our project manager, and we hope very much that you will add your voice to participating in the survey.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm honored to be a part of this historic project. Over the last few weeks, I have been interviewing Zoroastrians from around the world to find out what they think about the importance of this survey.
I think this survey fulfills a need that exists in the community for decades now. And therefore, I'm hoping that through this survey, we get a better understanding of what the pulse of the community is. It is a documented, well-structured, and scientifically done survey, which will then help community leaders in whichever part of the world to take information from the survey and then make decisions for their own community based on what their local community wanted.
I think this survey is a brilliant initiative and really gives a global snapshot of what our current community looks like. We have such fantastic minds. We must use the exuberance of the youth, the wisdom and grace of the elderly, and combine those two thought processes, not only just to survive, but to thrive and flourish.
Anniversary is very important
for our community. During more than 3,000 years, we have preserved our community by this important concept. It is our duty to question, to search, and to argue about everything. This is the teaching of our prophets. Participate in this research project so that our knowledge about our community becomes enhanced and elevated.
The beauty about the survey is that first thing, it's anonymous, so you don't have to worry about what are my friends going to think, and it's very exciting to know that we're doing a survey which is multinational, so we'll get to understand what other Zoroastrians in other countries are doing.
They will be helping the future generations to understand where we were at this point in time and face, what was the issues that concerned us, the issues that excited us, and that would be a good measure for them to take forward. So I think to the extent they want to really contribute to the survival of this religion, it would be good to participate and provide their inputs.
To participate in the survey, first visit genzetandbeyond.com and click sign up. You can sign up for the survey by providing either your email address or your mobile number. Once you click submit, you will receive a unique survey link within 2 working days via email or by text. We know you are busy, so after clicking on the link, you will be able to pause and return to the questionnaire at your convenience. Once you have completed the survey, your contact details will be permanently deleted from our records.
We have to stop infighting. We need to take care of our hearts. We need to do something for the poor, old classes. We need to take care of our Agyaris, Rapushpurans. We need the youngsters who are doing well in life to take active interest in religion.
Our community has some very real challenges as we go a few decades into the future. I mean, 1, our numbers are dropping quite precipitously. 2, we're getting more and more globally diverse. 3, things like secularization and such do, of course, have an impact on the cohesiveness of this community. It is, in many ways, up to all of us to kind of make sure that this community sticks together and make sure that we continue the traditions, religion, and culture that have been perpetuated for centuries in Iran, India, and elsewhere around the world.
I believe there are always differences between the older generation and the younger generation, how they look at the religion. And it's important to see that, especially our younger generation, how they view the religion, what is stopping them to participate in many of community events.
When you're talking to other people about taking the survey, I think that is a conversation in itself, and I think it will encourage people to also be quite introspective about their own identity.
I would want my children and my grandchildren to know from the survey what have we learned and be proud of their roots and be proud of the community that they are part of.
I think we have carved like a niche of just being really nice, kind-hearted souls, and just look at the Tatas. There's a lovely woman Irani who's made our community so proud of me like anyone else.
It is truly a privilege to be a part of one of the oldest religions still in existence. To be able to continue to practice the rituals and be given the opportunity to carry forward traditions, I encourage all Zoroastrians to take part in this survey. Get involved and get voices heard.
I think you won the lottery. Yes, I'm listening. Yeah.
When we do come together, it's amazing what we can do. And I think it's vital that we find out how the community is ticking on.
Therefore, it is really important that we get everybody from whichever part of the world to take this survey. It is for every Zoroastrian all over the world. It's important for all of us to take part in this survey. Maybe it won't benefit you, but your answers could benefit someone else, and it'll be a great way to bond within the community as well.
Hi,
Well, that was...
Hi, and I'm a professor of computer science.
Shernaz, you're on mute.
Thank you. I think that gave us a flavor of what there is about the survey. And I was wondering if there are any more questions. I think people have asked about how they could get to the old who don't have computers. And I think Sarah has said that you could take your laptop or even your phone to the old person and fill it out for them or help them to fill it out. So Shernaz, I think that question was answered previously. Nazneen, Kayoma's Kamis Dotiwala says, going back to the map which Dr. Sarah showed, showing parts of Mumbai being underwater in 2050, will FEZANA take the leadership to bring Zoroastrian communal bodies together, physically build structures to face the onslaught of water? Maybe Rointon Rivitna was Zoroastrian Roundtable can tackle it. That's just a statement. Jaru and Karishma are asking, are the villages in Gujarat being reached? Sarah?
Yes, they will be reached. That's what Nazneen is there to do. She arrived at the beginning of February. She leaves on the 18th of March, and she's traveling. She's in Surat now, as I mentioned, and I don't know if she's available online now to join us, but she will be going to the rural areas as well as to other cities. There's Nazneen now. I wonder, Shernaz, perhaps Nazneen could say something about that. And she's actually physically there now, and it just gave a talk in Surat, which was very well received, I understand.
Nazneen, over to you.
Thank you, Shernaz. Thank you, Sarah. The way that we're tackling this very difficult, question is by going to the big Anjumans like Surat, Baroda, Ahmedabad, Navsari. I'm presenting the project to them, into all of these various Anjuman and precedent heads. And they are the ones who then will be recruiting the volunteers. I don't have that much time here, but they're very much on board, and they will be the ones who will be sending out the volunteers to these remote villages and spreading the word within their own communities. And we will be there to help them, every step of the way. But this is very much, this can only be done through community help. So we have reached out to all these various associations, and they have or are willing to come on board to help us tackle not just their own communities within these big city centers, but also, the smaller communities that are a little further away from the cities. Sorry, Shernaz, you're on. I think I can't hear you.
How are you reaching families? I mean, Farouk and I were in Kozhikode, and there's only one Parsi family in the whole of Kozhikode. And the only reason we met them was we went to see the prayer room there, and the Mali or the gardener rang them up and said, God, there's a Parsi in Kozhikode. And they sent a card out for us. They were so excited. So how do you get in touch with people in small, who are, just one or two families living in other, parts of India?
Absolutely. We have a list of associations. So we're reaching out to all the associations in India. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but we really rely on community help. People have to forward the link, have to forward the video to say, this is something that's going on within the community. Have you heard about it? Please take the survey if you haven't. We don't want to miss out on these people, but it's virtually impossible for me or just a couple of my team to go to every single place or know where everyone is. I have read about this. I think I have read about this couple in Kozhikode because they were interviewed, and I have read an article about them. But if the person who's asking the comment can forward our link to that couple, if they're still in touch with them, that would be really, really good. It would be very interesting to know their experiences, being where they are and being the sole Zoroastrians there.
Right. You could answer this, Nazneen or Sarah. It says, does this survey have a QR code link? This may help those with a mobile phone.
We do have a QR code. It's available on our posters. It's also available in last the last issue of the FEZANA journal. So if that person is if they get the FEZANA journal, perhaps Arzan, you can put up the QR code here if you have easy access to it. All they have to do is just take a scan or turn on their phone cameras and then just position it over the QR code, and that should open up the sign up page. So they don't have to physically go to the website. They can just scan it and the website will pop up.
As you're on the ground there, Nazneen, one of the questions is, if the Parsi farmers and villagers feel that they count in some way, it will have a great benefit for Parsis all over India.
Absolutely. We definitely have the means to reach out to them, and we will be reaching out to them. It's just a matter of logistics and time. We just have to get to them. I'm in Surat at the moment, but I will be traveling to Navsari, Baroda, and all these different places. So we will be getting to as many people as possible over the next month.
So there's, I mean, people are actually putting, says there's a family in Bhuj, Kutch in Gujarat. There's a family.
There are,
there's a fire temple built by my grandfather, Khan Bahadur Pestanji, Bhujwala. So basically, I assume you'll have to reach Bhuj, Kutch to get at this family. I mean, it's quite a task.
Well, I hope that they have. I hope that they have a smartphone, and you know, we can talk with them online. I think even though they might be quite remote, I think a lot of people are connected in terms of technology. So we will be, reaching them that way as well, not just physically, but also trying to reach them electronically. I know that there's, 15 families or 15 people in Bhavnagar. There's just a handful of people sort of dotted around, 25 people in Lucknow. I've been in touch with them as well. Tiny communities dotted around all over India. And we are making every effort to reach them. But if people who are, attending this talk, if you know of someone who's in a remote place, then please, you would really give us a helping hand if you forward the link, etc., to your friends in these remote places.
Very quickly, Nazeen, can you give us the end date when this survey ends? Because some people want to know.
Sure.
How much time do we have?
We have until September. Okay. This is a tentative date. We're not 100% on it, but trying to keep it open for as long as possible to get the maximum number of people to take part. But please do not feel that, okay, because it is in September, I'll do it on August 31st. Please do it now, as soon as possible, because we are, every month we download the results of that month. We are collating the data. We don't want to be, in August when we're trying to write the report, September when we're sort of beginning to write the report, or collect all the data to put into this report. We don't want to be bombarded with huge numbers. So we really, really are encouraging people to take it as soon as you receive it. So if you receive the link, sign up immediately and do the survey as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Okay. Sarah, is there something else you'd like to mention at all before we go into a communal chit chat?
I don't think so. Thank you very much for all of your questions and interest. And it's been very, very nice having you all here. And do write to us. Dispel. I think you can. Anyone who isn't sure about anything, the information is there on the website. I mean, I'm very conscious that people don't read through volumes of, text. It's tedious, and I think that's where the problem lies. Everything is there on the website, and you can always write in. And as I said, we might, if it's helpful, and providing obviously there's a level of anonymity that people want, we could actually have some almost sort of gatherings, workshops, Zoom meetings, where a whole bunch of people, can just take the survey. It'll be like half an hour.
I think it'd be a great idea.
Because I know that our ambassadors meetings are always very very nice, and
Great.
people like to share what's going on.
So I mean, this has been an amazing thing. I thought people ask a lot about the environment, but it's obvious that people are very, very interested in the survey. And I think that's very heartening. And Sarah, honestly, thank you so much for your very enlightening talk. I've always known that Zoroastrianism was in the forefront of environment and such like, but you've actually told us that this is happening with Zoroastrians 3,000 years ago. So it's amazing that the world's just woken up to it now. So thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting. And I'm actually very happy that people are taking interest in the survey. And please tell all your friends and your relatives, because this is very important. This is for generations in the future, because they can look at the survey, you know, because you're doing a spotlight on time now, but people will look at it maybe in 30, 40, 50 years and see what was going on, you know, then. So I think it's fabulous. And thank you very much. We've all really enjoyed it. And I open the webinar to everyone for a chit chat, as Arzan said. So Arzan, over to you.
Sure. So thank you very much. I think this was fantastic. And as Adel Dawer rightly pointed out, we now have, 150 more ambassadors. Please go, spread the word, share email addresses. Again, like, one of the, I think this is the first speaker that we're going to announce, and we'll do it informally. Dr. Stewart is going to be at the 12th World Zoroastrian Congress in New York, and so is Nazneen. And, so there's one more reason for you to come to the Congress and to meet Dr. Stewart in person and, continue this discussion. So we hope that you will take this opportunity and sign up for the Congress. I will, you can unmute yourselves, and we'll keep it open for another 10 minutes or so, and people can, this is a free for open session. We can talk about what was discussed or not, or any other topics. Keep your discussion brief, because Dr. Stewart's here only for a short time. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure, please.
This is our mighty Arzan. You know how they said that maybe it's somewhere in bold letters, you should say that it is not only the Gen Z, is not only for the youngsters, but for everybody. But can you please also mention that each member of the family has to fill it out? Because I feel that people are doing, one person has done it, so it's done, and not everybody is doing it in the family. So if there are 6 people in the household and all are over 18, I think that they all should be filling out that survey. So I don't think that is explained very well somewhere. Okay, fair point. We'll get the website updated so that it's bold right up front and center. Because I know I am putting it in the OZCF newsletter every single month after month, and I don't know if people are tired of looking at it, but it's going in every weekly pulse that we are sending out every week. But I think it would make more sense if we just put an addendum saying, we can't take a census of who has and hasn't filled it out. Thank you.
Manik, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Stewart, for the project and your perseverance to continue with it. It always takes a lot of persistence to continue things in spite of obstacles. What I had brought up about the Ancestry project, is for the whole community. The LDS Church, the Latter-day Saints Christian Church, they have an Ancestry database website and all that. And it's can be very interesting for people to know where their ancestors came from, like, maybe all the way into Iran or something. So I thought, maybe someone, in our community can take the lead on doing something about that. Thank you.
Anybody else? I mean, you can unmute yourself. You have that ability now.
Arizan, I wanted to mention something which is not completely allied to the survey, but I was told that with the rising waters around the west coast of India, and especially around Udvada and Bharuch and that side, our agyaris and our Atashparam would be in danger, maybe not now, but maybe in 50 years' time. So is there any plans from the Bombay Parsi Panchayat or the world community to preserve the coastline or to preserve, or what will happen to the Atashparam if the water keeps coming in?
I think that's a fair question. I'm not sure, if there is, like, for example, I know that, before the Udvada Atashparam renovation, the old Udvada Atashparam structures, especially the areas where you went to do your Trustee, they used to always get flooded whenever the tides used to come in. And I know that when in the new renovation, they purposely put, they raised it by 3 feet to kind of counter that. But that may be like a very small, minuscule intervention into a larger issue. I don't think there is anybody over here who kind of, there is nobody from the Bombay Parsi Panchayat or others who would be able to give more substantial information on that. But it's a question that we should, keep open-ended and maybe bring it up at the global working group for them to discuss. I think, rising waters is a problem not only in India, but it's everywhere. But I think it's much more acute on the western coast of India, where the majority of the Parsi community lives.
Yes, and where Atashparam is.
Yes.
Hi, are you?
Yeah, Merbuzin, go ahead.
Yes, hi. First, I want to thank the speaker and yourself and Mr. Engineer for a very informative talk. I want to follow up with what Manik Ujwala asked about ancestry. For those of you who live in North America, I don't believe this facility is available in India or in Europe. You can definitely go to places like 23andMe or Ancestry.com and submit a sample, blood sample, and they will tell you what your genetic composition is in terms of your ancestry. For the Iranian Zartushtis, the ones I have seen who have submitted, it very clearly points out what provinces of Iran they're coming from, which is basically Yazd, Kerman, Khorasan, and Tehran. That's where the dominance is. I've been very curious to see anybody from the Parsi community has done that, see if there's any indication of their genetic composition going back to, 13 centuries ago. If anybody has, I'll be interested to hear from them. This is available now, at least in North America.
Okay. Fair point. I think, Merbuzin, if there is somebody who on this call who has that information, drop in your email and I'll connect you with Merbuzin on email. Shireen Larson has her hand up. Shireen, can you unmute yourself? Shireen, are you there? Yeah, go ahead. Shireen, are you okay? Let's move to the next one. Rohinton and Roshan have Rivetna have a question. Rohinton, go ahead.
I was just going to say about the Udvada Atashparam. It's in danger of being inundated with water. There has been some activity in terms of building a dike several years ago, but we really need to address that. It's a critical issue for our global community to address. So hopefully we'll bring it up at the global working group and talk about it and see if something can be done.
Sure. Khushid, go ahead.
Hi.
Hello, this is Shireen. I finally unmuted.
Okay.
I believe I took the survey when it first came out. Is there a way to validate whether or not you took it?
I think if you put in your email address again, it will automatically knock you out, right? So in that sense, probably that's the easiest way to validate whether you took the survey or not.
Okay, thank you.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, Khushi, go ahead, please.
So I think there are two suggestions I have to further propagate and enhance participation in this survey. One was all those things I mentioned, QR code, videos somebody mentioned, etc., but also a little progress bar. I'm sure you have some kind of idea of ballpark. Let's say there are 100,000 Zoroastrians you're trying to reach. And let's say right now you are at 1%, an estimated progress bar, and showing that so many are done so that people feel an incentive to reach the end of the bar. It's always, feels cool to feel like you're going ahead, progressing. And then second point I have is that this seems, I haven't taken the survey because, to be very honest, as I said, the word Gen Z, and I was like, okay, with all this white hair, I'm definitely not Gen Z. But now I understood it's about Zoroastrianism. So I think adding some main subtopics or headings in your survey description, saying this survey covers, let's say, environmental issues, population issues, this issues, and that issues, 3 or 4 main things, because you just, as Dr. Stewart said, 150 questions or whatever, there were a large number, let's put it that way. So somebody who's interested in some of those subtopics will be even more incentivized to take it, thinking, this might benefit the community, although you can't separate those subtopics in the questions, I'm sure. But, I don't even know what it's about, other than that it's all encompassing and all, it's a very broad thing. So it's not very clear, I think, the messaging as to what are the future projects or what are the goals of this, et cetera, other than it's just gathering information about everything, every Parsi, every Zoroastrian, everywhere.
Okay, I think fair point. Well, Sarah, do you want to respond?
Can I interject just 1 minute, Arzan? This is Tahmine. I second her. I'm with white hair. I'm an elderly person, but every time I get the email, I say, oh, okay, I'm not part of it. I'm not part of it, but I can do it. But I have to be honest because I'm not Gen Z. I'm an elderly person, very elderly person. So I second her, or retitle the survey, whatever is better for the community to understand. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Tamina.
Can I just say, thank you both of you, very good points. It's really unfortunate that there is this very basic misunderstanding about what Gen Z constitutes. And we absolutely have to go back to the drawing board and see how best to address that. I think if we actually completely change the title, it'd be, total mayhem, because there are just so many surveys out there. But I also like the idea of some kind of progress bar, and the idea that we actually give an idea of the variety of topics that there are. Future projects and goals, it's a little more difficult. We don't have an agenda. This is the thing. We don't have, it's not for us to kind of set an agenda as to what we want the outcomes to be. We don't know what the outcomes are going to be because there's so many different, things to look at. So what would be nice actually is for you to tell us what you'd like the outcomes to be. That is just perhaps flipping it around. We will have all this data. We will have ways of producing our report. There'll be very interesting information, I think, comparative stuff that will come out. But I think it would, that's from the point of view of us running a research project without belonging to the community. For you in the community, it would be quite good to hear those of you who are interested in it, what you think will be useful. I've told you what I think will be useful. It's a massive resource. It's a database. It's an encyclopedic, set in a point in time. But there might be things that are of interest to you specifically, which we'd like to hear about. I mean, sorry, I don't want to bang on, but it just occurred to me when people ask about whether or not we have preconceived ideas and, controlling the information. I'm very keen to say, no, we don't. But I think one of the biggest projects the biggest project in my career, it was the Everlasting Flame exhibition. And I've noticed that Feroza Pantaki Mistry, who was co-curator in that, amongst other curators, has been here in this talk as well. And that was very much of the community, for the community, 100% funded by the community. But we ran it here at SOAS, in a sense, as an academic project. Nobody told us kind of what had to go into the exhibition or what we could write in the catalogue. So, these kind of two streams of information, if you like. We don't have an agenda. It should be useful for all of you as well. So I hope that makes sense.
Sure.
If I can respond to Dr. Stewart's point about what would be your suggestions, the community's suggestions. So maybe at the end of the survey, based on whatever main topics or subheadings that you choose to write, you could ask people, would you like to be directed to vote on this? So would you be interested in more information on, say, A, population, B, religious places of worship, C, preservation, things like that. But it's completely voluntary, like if they don't want to vote or, just a yes, no, quick yes, no. So that would give you an idea, right? Who's interested in what and why. At least having done surveys and understanding statistics, obviously a survey has to be statistically significant to make it worth it, right? And it seems like you're trying really hard, and I really, really appreciate all these efforts. I just would love to help make it a success. So to make it a success, I think there are some misconceptions, and then there are some future goals that could be outlined, whether it comes to fruition or not, nobody knows, but at least it will be there for posterity.
Okay, well, thank you.
I think before we wrap up, I think one of the things that people can do in the immediate coming months is that hopefully with the pandemic receding, I know that there are a few associations, a lot of associations are planning for Navroz, functions in person, and maybe, at those functions, play the video clip. We can share that with you. It's on YouTube, and help with the publicity. I think a top-down, it has to be both a bottom-up approach where, it just, organically grows and people receive links and, see it on social media and others. But it would help if it also went top-down. And we have quite a few, community leaders on this call. And I really urge all of you to use that, position and platform, and put it out there. Like if you have, Sunday school, start with just a small word and just put out the link in the chat or something like that. Or if you're meeting in person, play the video. It's only a 6-minute video. It kind of captures entirely what you're trying to do. And, we will continue with that conversation even at the World Congress. And I think Astad has something to say on that. Astad? Astad, go ahead.
Yes. I think the important thing that has come up here, the one big issue perhaps, is this issue that Damine and Khushir bring up regarding the misconception with the name. So perhaps what we could do on social media, as you publicize it, have a new sort of ad, if you will, indicating Gen Z's not limited age-wise. And to Tamine and Khurshid, I can just say, I think what Gen Z means is mentally, not physically. So both of you are mentally young. You can take part. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I think
I
we'll
had
end
one
this.
more question, Arzan. I recently saw that the Jewish Museum of Washington, D.C. has created a traveling exhibit about the Holocaust of the Jews. And do we have any kind of exhibit or video that has been created that we could also, establish? If not, while many of the older people, especially the Iranians, have memories of what happened from a word of mouth. But I think that would be a worthwhile project, to create a traveling exhibit like a video that could be shown at different universities. This one is being currently shown at the University of California, Irvine, and supposed to go all around. So I just had a question if there is something already existing.
Sure, Manik, I think that's good food for thought, and probably it's for another session and another day. We'll leave it at that. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sarah Stewart and Shernaz Engineer for their time. It's been a really interesting discussion, and it obviously doesn't end. The discussion doesn't end today, and we hope that you take it, further, discuss it, continue this conversation with your friends and family, and help us, reach a statistical, meaningful number that will help this survey. And it will be a timestamp, right? It will be what we all think today in worldwide, and it has never been done before at this scale, and today we have the technology to do it. And I think we should take advantage of all of the people who've contributed their money towards making this happen, and the effort that Dr. Stewart and Nazneen and others are putting in. So please help spread the word, and let's continue this conversation virtually, in your local communities, in your families, and regroup back, at the World Congress in July, where we'll get a status update of where the survey stands. So with that, I thank everybody for joining this FEZANA talk, and we look forward to seeing you all at a future talk in a few weeks. Thank you, and have a great rest of the weekend, and stay safe.